All right. Welcome, folks. We appreciate you being here. As you know, we've asked you to come and work with Jonathan Bowers and me on basically a review of some of the work we've done related to our lit review and see how that has implications to our principal recruitment and training program and how we work with principals shortly after they're hired through that first 2 or 3 years of their principalship. You were strategically selected based on your current roles and your experience. So what I'd like you to do is just go around the table and feel free to look back towards the camera a little as you introduce yourself. We'll start right here.
I am Susan Rogers, a first-year principal at Sun Valley Elementary School in Union County.
I'm Archie Price. I'm the interim director of support services for middle and high school, and I'm a retired high school principal.
I am Robert Filter. I am the Director of Career and Technical Education for Union County Public Schools.
I am Bashan Harris. I am currently principal of Porter Ridge High School.
All right, thank you folks for being there. Again, as you know, I'm Sam Basden, and we're just gonna kind of jump in. We briefed you a little on the format, but just to kind of set the context, what we're gonna do is I'm going to go through a few elements that apply directly to the transition between being a classroom teacher and signing that first contract as a principal, school level principal. So I've got some elements I'm going to go through. I'll bring up the topic. I'll talk briefly about what some of the research implies. And then I'm going to ask you to respond. We'll just go around with the response, 2 or 3 minutes per response. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm really interested in your personal experience. You were selected because of you. The research gives us a view of what the global looks like. We're interested in how that global practice has manifested itself right here in Union County. Okay, so let's talk about recruiting. One of the things that the research and the literature talks about is we don't really do a good job in education of identifying leadership talent and recruiting them into administration. What's much more likely is a teacher self-identifies, hey, I think I'll be a pretty good administrator one day, or in some cases, they just decide they want more money, regardless of whether they are talented or have aspirations to be a leader. So they self-identify, and then they enroll in a university. One of the things we learn about university choices is generally that decision is much more based on geography than it is anything else. Research says that most people who go into a program to get their license do it within 50 miles of their home. Well, that geographic may not be the best reason to choose a university. So with that kind of as our context, talk to me a little bit about how you went from being a classroom teacher to being identified to be an administrator. We'll start with you, Ms.
Okay.
Rogers.
I went from being a classroom teacher to a curriculum coordinator position because principals identified leadership skills in me that I did not at that time necessarily see in myself. And the curriculum coordinator position, like 2 different elementaries, allowed me to develop my leadership skills and to build relationships and to have a vision and provide the action steps to get there, to make it successful. And then after 6 years in a curriculum position, with more so my principals advocating for me and building up my skill set, allowing me opportunities to grow in different areas, I decided to apply for a master's degree in ed leadership.
Okay.
I did go locally to Wingate University.
Thank you. Let's just kind of follow the timeline and then we'll finish with you every time, Mr. Filter, if that's okay. Dr. Harris?
I started off my career in CMS as a EC teacher, behavior and BED teacher. I felt as though I could do more, and so I started taking over more responsibilities at the middle school, Coolwood Middle School. And we got a new principal at that time, and that principal saw that and created a position. I think back then, I'm not sure if there were dean of students, but I guess I was a dean of students. Took me out of the classroom, and I did administration things within the school. As far as me signing that first contract as a principal, I then applied for with Union County and interviewed with superintendents, and then they,
Fine, keep going.
okay,
Keep going.
what are you doing? And then they hired me on as an assistant principal, and from there I interviewed as a principal.
Thank you. Mr. Price, how did you go from being a classroom teacher to being an administrator?
I had no desire whatsoever to be an administrator. I was a history teacher at Forest Hills, coached tennis, JV football for a while. My principal would occasionally bug me and say, "You need to be a principal," and I thought he was just getting extra work out of me, during the summer and stuff like that. But I had been drafted, so I had my GI Bill, so I started taking courses. I first got a master's degree in counseling, and after 7 years in the classroom, I began as a high school counselor, and I did that for 4 years. And during that time, I went back to use the GI Bill at Winthrop to get my degree in administration, because I thought, well, hey, that's easier than working in the summer, and you got paid a little bit of money for it. And then I started becoming interested in what was being said in the classes. And then at some point, my focus changed from being in the classroom or being a counselor to moving into administration. And so I got a job as an assistant principal at Sun Valley Middle School. And from that point, after a year and a half, I was appointed principal at Piedmont High School, which I did for 15 years approximately, and then moved to a couple of other positions. So it was a transition for me, Mr. Basden. I had no intentions to begin with, like many people I believe today do.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they start out with the idea of I'm going to be in administration, and that was just not my track. And things were a lot different in those days. There were no internships. You simply usually went from being in the classroom or whatever straight to a principalship.
That's a specific question I'm going to ask you in a few minutes about internship. Mr. Filter, do you have anything to add here?
I do. I had no intention to become a teacher, let alone an administrator, and I started my career in industry, worked 17 years in industry, and made the decision. My wife had taught all of her life and decided that I would join her in that endeavor, and so I became a teacher. And as a teacher, I was supporting and assisting administration, and made the decision that I think that's what I want to do to be able to continue in that role. So I went to Wingate University and got my degree. Again, it was within 50 miles. It was somewhere close, and it was a face-to-face program, and so I took that opportunity. I then, as I was going through that process, was offered a curriculum position with Career and Technical Education. And then upon the current director leaving, I then was recruited. I won't say I was recruited, but I was interested in becoming the director, and applied and received that position.
Thank you. So we've gone from being classroom teachers to being moving into a program at a university as you work your way down the timeline. And what I'm seeing is that we're kind of split on so far on personal initiative versus being identified and pushed. So that's an interesting concept for us to note. So now we're in university. I want to spend a little time talking about our university experience. And again, we're going to talk university, and then we're going to talk about what we did when we became school level administrators as assistant principals. So we're going to kind of focus our answer on our university experience. A couple of the things we learned when we look at the current university programs that can be a little problematic is, first of all, a lot of our university programs as they're currently organized kind of limit our access to leadership theory. There's this breadth of things that we try to teach students when they are in university programs, but one of the things that university programs are limited in right now is teaching leadership. There's individual classes, finance, law, fill in the blank, but as far as teaching the leadership itself, it is 1 or 2 classes also. So that's one of the shortcomings that I've identified in the literature so far. Another shortcoming that is clear is this idea of teaching organizational change. So, oftentimes when a new principal goes into a building or a veteran principal follows someone, rarely do we keep things going as they were. There has to be some sort of institutional organizational change. And right now, the literature reflects that we don't do a real good job of that in higher ed, focusing on organizational change, Bowman and Deal research, those sorts of things. Finally, one of the things that comes up, and I'd be interested to hear your idea on this, is this idea of diversity in programs. How diverse, think about how diverse your faculty was. Or was it a bunch of old white guys like me? Okay. Think about their experience. What did they do to earn the right to teach you to be an administrator? And think about the ones you had that may have been administrators versus the ones you had that were not. And think about the idea of how that plays into this idea of social justice, because teaching elements of social justice does appear to be another shortcoming in some of our university programs. So with that kind of as our stem, talk to me a little bit about your experience at in your university program. Just a
For
minute
the
or two.
master's.
For the master's, yes.
And that was a while ago, so I'm dusting off some rust there. For the master's program, I appreciated the fact, I went to Wingate University based on Union County connections
Okay.
and recommendations at the time. So going into the coursework, I do agree, I don't remember a lot of leadership theory specifically. What I do, my takeaways from the coursework was the experience of the instructor, who the majority of the time were principals or in some kind of admin or higher central office role.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that I learned more from the instructor sharing the experiences and playing scenario-based situations where not only were they shared, but we were put in situations where here's the scenario,